Aegon's Conquest, also called the Conquest, was the campaign in which Aegon I, or Aegon Targaryen, conquered most of Westeros, together with his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys, and their dragons Balerion, Vhagar and Meraxes. Aegon subdued 6 of the 7 kingdoms, successfully resisted only by Dorne. Not all the continent had to be taken by conquest, as some regions and houses supported House Targaryen and others submitted willingly. Aegon's initial campaign lasted 2 years. It was followed by the First Dornish War. In this video, the third video of the House of the Dragon series, on your YouTube channel, Reviews and Beyond, we will see how Aegon has turned his attention to the West, and how he has unified the 7 kingdoms and forged the Iron Throne, and most importantly, why he had done this. In the first video and the second video, we have seen how Lord Aenar Targaryen had moved his family to Dragonstone, the westernmost outpost of the Valyrian freehold, 12 years before the Doom destroyed Valyria, leading Essos to what is called the Century of Blood. Towards the end of the so-called Century of Blood, the young Lord Aegon Targaryen, rider of the dragon Balerion, was approached by the Free Cities Pentos and Tyrosh to form an alliance. Aegon aided the alliance in defeating the Voluntis fleet, after which he returned to Dragonstone. Some believes that Aegon had never visited Westeros before his invasion, but there are reports of him having visited the Arbor and the Citadel. Years before the conquest, he had ordered the construction of the Painted Table, a table at Dragonstone cut into an accurate geographical map of Westeros. The first of tales on the reasons why Aegon has invaded Westeros says that Aegon has seen the others, the Nightwalkers, in a dream. Thus, by unifying the 7 kingdoms, Westeros will be ready for whatever is coming. The second hypothesis says Harrenhal, the king of the isles and the rivers, was nearing completion of his vast castle, Harrenhal, and was said to be looking for more conquest. Argilac had grown afraid of Harren, and so proposed an alliance with Aegon to create a buffer zone between him and Harren. He offered the hand of his daughter, Argila, in a marriage as well as dowry lands, though much of the lands were in the possession of Harren the Black. Aegon refused and instead offered the hand of his best friend and bastard brother, Orys Baratheon. Argilac took this as a grave insult and had the hand of the envoy cut off. He sent them to Aegon with the message, "These are the only hands you will receive." Aegon called his banners and took counsel with them and his sisters, after which he sent ravens to the rulers in the 7 kingdoms. He informed them that he would be the only king in Westeros, and that those who bend the knee would keep their lands and titles, and he will destroy those who did not. Aegon apparently considered all of Westeros as one land, despite the fact that the continent was long split into 7 kingdoms, and was determined to unify it under his rule. Maria Martell, Princess of Dorne, replied she would be Aegon's ally against the Storm King Argilac, but would not yield. Aegon rejected her offer. The Lord of Dragonstone also rejected Chara Arryn, the Queen Regent of the Vale, who desired the eastern bank of the Green Fork from Harren, since Chara offered Aegon an alliance and not submission. The first war was taking place in Harrenhal, and it was named Burning of Harrenhal, in which Aegon marched northwest to the God's Eye and Harrenhal, but he was attacked by House Hor twice in the south shore of the God's Eye. The Battle of the Reeds was a Targaryen victory, but they suffered heavy losses at the Wailing Willows when 2 of King Harren the Black's sons crossed the lake in longboots with muffled oars and fell upon their back. Balerion fell upon the victors as they were crossing back across the lake, burning Harren's longboots and sons as well. Harren ordered the River Lords to defend Harrenhal, but they rose against his command under the leadership of Lord Edmund Tully of Riverrun. One by one, the River Lords joined their strength to Aegon, with Edmund being the first to do so. Suddenly outnumbered, King Harren the Black took refuge in his supposedly impregnable stronghold. Aegon met Harren at the gates under a peace banner to parley. Descending from the sky atop Balerion, Aegon used Dragonflame against the great castle, and Harren and his sons died in the burning of Harrenhal. The next day, Aegon accepted an oath of fealty from Edmund Tully and named him Lord of the Paramount of the Trident. The other River Lords did homage as well to Aegon as a king and Edmund as Liege Lord of the Riverlands. The melted swords of Harren's Ironborn were sent to the Aegon fort. Meanwhile, the two great western kings made common cause and assembled their own armies. From Highgarden marched Mern II Gardener, king of the Reach, with a mighty host from the Reach. Beneath the walls of Golden Grove, he met Loren Lannister, king of the Rock, leading his own hosts from the Westerlands. Together, they commanded the mightiest host ever seen in Westeros, an army 55,000 strong, including over 5,000 knights. The two kings did not linger at Golden Grove, marching north. Over 5,000 died in this field of fire, and tens of thousands were wounded. Mer and his kin all were mortally wounded from the battle, ending House Gardener. Loren managed to escape, but he and the Lannister bannerman yielded to Aegon after being captured the following day. Loren was named Aegon's Warden of the West. Aegon marched at once for Highgarden, hoping to secure its surrender. He found the castle in the hand of its steward, Harlan Tyrell, who yielded the castle without a fight and pledged his support to Aegon. In reward, Harlan was granted Highgarden and named Warden of the South and Lord Paramount of the Mander. While Aegon dealt with the Harrenhal, the greater part of his hosts crossed the Blackwater Rush heading south from Storm's End under the command of Orys Baratheon, with Queen Rhaenys Targaryen accompanying him as trade Meraxes, while the Storm King Argilac Rendon gathered his bannermen to Storm's End. Pirates from the Stepstones raided Cape Wrath and Dornishmen from the Red Mountains attacked the Dornish marches. In what became known as the Last Storm, Argilac attacked the Baratheon and Targaryen forces during the Howling Gale. The Storm King and his knights broke through Orys Center during their third charge, but then they faced Queen Rhaenys. Meraxes' dragon flame killed the personal guard of Argilac, who was thrown from the saddle. Orys offered him to yield, but Argilac cursed him instead, after Orys slew the wounded Storm King in single combat. The Stormlanders threw down their swords and fled. Argilac's daughter, Argilla Durrandon, barred the gates of Storm's End and declared herself Storm Queen. The castle soldiers, however, eventually delivered her to Orys' camp. Orys took Argilla as his wife and chose the wards of House Durrandon for the new House Baratheon. Aegon named Orys the Lord Paramount of the Storm's Land and made him Lord of Storm's End. Following the death of Harren the Black at Harrenhal, Aegon sent his sister Queen Visenya to demand the submission of Cracklow Point, and indeed they submitted, followed by the submission of the North, as Aegon and his queens gathered the lords and the knights who had already yielded to House Targaryen. When Torrhen Stark, king in the North, had crossed the neck with an army of 30,000 Nordmen, he has been faced with an army doubled his army. Torrhen sent Brandon with maesters to negotiate peace. The following day, Torrhen crossed the Trident and yielded to Aegon, becoming Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. Torrhen has subsequently been known as the King Who Knelt. This have been followed by the submission of the Vale. Until now, 6 of the 7 kingdoms has already submitted, and the 7th is Dorne. Dorne was the hardest kingdom to invade, as from 4 years after the Conquest, every time King Aegon and his sisters launched an invasion of Dorne, intent to complete their conquest of the 7 kingdoms, they found the castles abandoned and the Planky town, where only women and children remained. Maria Martell, the aged princess of Dorne, defied the Targaryen, stating that they would neither fight or kneel. Leading an attack on Dorne, the Targaryens once arrived at Sunspear. They discovered that Princess Maria had vanished, declaring themselves victorious. King Aegon and Queen Rhaenys placed Dorne under the rule of the Iron Throne. They returned to King's Landing, leaving Lord Jon Rosby as Castellan of Sunspear and Warden of the Sands, and charged Lord Harlan Tyrell with putting down any revolts that might arise. Aegon and Rhaenys had only just returned to King's Landing when the Dornish rebelled against the Targaryens. From Sunspear's Shadow City, Dornish men came forth, retaking the castle. Lord Rosby was captured and thrown from the window atop the Spear Tower by Princess Maria Martell, and 5 years after the conquest, Lord Harlan Tyrell marched his army from Hellholt, intent on taking Vaith and Sunspear. In the deserts of Dorne, the entire army disappeared. Elsewhere, entire garrisons were put to the sword. The knights who had been in charge of the garrisons were horrifically tortured. In 7 years after the conquest, aiming for a revenge, King Aegon unleashed his dragons. The castles who remained defiant were burned time and time again, whereupon the Dornish retaliated in 8 after the conquest by setting half of the Rainwood on Cape Wrath ablaze and sacked half of dozen towns and villages. In 9 years after the conquest, the dragons struck again, burning several seats. The next year, Lord Fowler attacked Nightsong, taking its defender hostage, while Ser Joffrey Dane marched an army to Old Town and razed the fields and villages nearby. The Targaryens unleashed their dragons a third time, this time upon Starfall, the seat of House Dane, Skyreach, the seat of House Fowler, and Hellholt, the seat of House Aller. At Hellholt, the dragon Meraxes was shot down from the sky, with Queen Rhaenys Targaryen upon her back, when a bolt from a scorpion pierced the dragon's eye. Although Meraxes destroyed the castle's highest tower and part of its curtain wall in its fall, the death of both dragon and queen was the greatest success the Dornish had against the Targaryens. The grief Aegon and Visenya felt at the death of Rhaenys was great. The next 2 years would later be called the years of the dragon's wrath. The Targaryens burned every Dornish stronghold at least once, with the exception of Sunspear and its Shadow City. The Dornish believed that the Targaryens refused to attack Sunspear because they were afraid that Princess Maria may have purchased a device from Lys to slay dragons with. Archmaester Timothy offers a different explanation, suggesting in his conjectures that Aegon hoped this would instead turn the Dornish against the Martells. Indeed, letters have been discovered in which Marcher Lords urged Dornish Lord to surrender, while claiming that House Martell had purchased their safety from the dragons. Regardless of the truth, the Dornish Lords and small folks remained loyal. The Dornish War came to an end in 13 years after the conquest, when, following the death of Princess Maria Martell, her elderly son Namor, now the ruling Prince of Dorne, sent his daughter Daria to King's Landing with an escort as a peace envoy. She brought with her skull of Rhaenys dragons Meraxes and the letter from Prince Namor. The sight of the dragon's skull angered many at the loyal court, such as Queen Visenya Targaryen and Lord Orys Baratheon, but Aegon refused to act against the delegation. Instead, Daria was allowed to deliver her father's terms. Prince Namor wanted peace but would not submit to the Iron Throne. Aegon was determined to refuse this offer until Daria handed him her father's letter. No person and no maester in the Citadel knows what was written in the letter. Thank you for watching, and please like the video and subscribe to receive new videos.